Okay, quick update on Iran. Things are going according to plan, I think. In our last update last week, we speculated that the negotiations had been sidetracked by the Beijing summit and that something was going to happen at Beijing that would loosen things up. Signposts we were looking for were some kind of evidence that the situation in Iran was discussed between the US and China. And I said not to expect an announcement. We certainly could not expect Xi and Trump to walk to a podium and say that they had thrown Iran and Taiwan, respectively, under the bus. That wasn't going to happen, but that we should just look for negotiations to loosen up a little bit on Monday. Here we are on Monday. I think that's what we've seen. And we got even more signaling than I would have suspected because over the weekend, President Trump, in a number of interviews, basically read from a script that Xi Jinping handed him on Taiwan. We had discussed last week about China wanting the U.S. to pivot from their position of not supporting Taiwanese independence to opposing it. That wasn't done explicitly, but President Trump, in a number of cases, really unsolicited, went into these soliloquies about how a movement by the Taiwanese towards independence was not something he was in favor of. I don't think he actually said opposed specifically, but it was pretty clear that he wanted to get the point across that he was opposed to that kind of thing. So I would say Taiwan got thrown under the bus, and we're going to find out only subsequently to what extent China threw Iran under the bus. Does China need to help the U.S. with Iran? No. All they need to do is tell the Iranians, hey, settle this now. If you continue dragging this out, we can't support that. If you don't get some kind of sanctions relief from the U.S., don't look to us to take down all your oil anymore. If they said something like that, that's it. The rug is pulled on the Iranians, and they really have to make a deal. So is that what we're seeing? Yes, it looks like even last week, the U.S. went back to the Iranians with a proposal. The Iranians have come back. Of course, both sides are bitching, but we're really down to brass tacks. It sounds like the Iranians have given up on the Hormuz tolls thing. China's clearly not in support of it. Not going to happen. And they're talking about details of when and how much money will be released to Iran, when and in what sequencing they can get sanctions relief in return for doing something with the nuclear dust. Iran sticking to this line that they have the right to enrichment under the NPT. Other countries get their nuclear energy from outside the country. If Iran has no interest in a weapon, why can't they do that? So this is what the U.S. is arguing. But it's really a moot point in the near term because Iran's program is under rubble. So, let's just get this done already. They're very close. I think there's a very high bar to going back to bombing. I'm sure Trump understands it doesn't really get him anywhere. He wants this done, and any bombing campaign, by nature, increases the timeline for when you can get back to a negotiated settlement, and it might completely preclude that. And it also raises the risk that Iran could actually hit something this time when they retaliate, do damage in the Gulf, to oil facilities, and then you're at a semi-permanently higher plateau for oil prices. So a lot of risk, not much reward in renewed bombing. That's not what's going to get Iran to move. It's the fact that they're bleeding cash, their economy is hemorrhaging, and if the Chinese don't say, we'll support you come hell or high water, then they really have to make a deal. The last thing I would note is we got talk about, whether the U.S. had offered temporary sanctions relief or not from Tasnim, the really hawkish IRGC outlet in Iran, and a couple tweets from them where they were talking about contours of the deal. First time by my recollection that outlet has really sort of embraced the deal-making process. So all going according to the plan. Plans have gone awry before in this story, as you all know. But the scenario we laid out over a week ago seems to be playing out. And I think it's going to happen within a week, or Trump will then just say, I'm not talking to these guys anymore, and we'll be in for extended blockade and real severe tightening of the sanctions on Iran. But again, I don't think we'll get there. Hang in there.